Let me tell you guys something. Chris Benoit, when you talk about him, he was one of the most decorated superstars in all of wrestling history. We're talking about somebody who was on top of his game, somebody who gave it his all, a perfectionist to the very core of his existence. And this man, because of what he did, will never be recognized for his accomplishments in the wrestling business. What Chris Benoit did not only affected his career, but his wife's career as well. Because of his actions, they will never be recognized in any wrestling Hall of Fame or any other wrestling organization without remembering the horrible and horrific actions of Chris Benoit. You can never speak the name Chris Benoit without remembering the horrible scenes from the media talking about steroids and CTE and how he had 10 times more testosterone than an average man. Let's face facts here. Because of what happened to Chris Benoit, WWE had to tighten up their belt. A lot of performers who were using performance-enhancing drugs had to stop using those performance-enhancing drugs. A lot of professional wrestlers were getting suspended because of what happened with Chris Benoit. Let's not forget that. That's why Chris Jericho had to come back around 2007, 2008 or so, because of what happened. Because you had the top guys who were taking stuff like Cena and Edge and Orton, who had to come off the stuff. Let's not forget that, guys. That's what happened a little bit after the Benoit incident. And for me, I wasn't a wrestling fan at that time. I stopped watching wrestling for many years. And I'll tell you why. I got sick and tired of watching wrestling. I didn't want to be a Cena fan. And I saw what was happening. They were pushing Cena a lot, and I wasn't on board with Cena. I really wasn't. So I stopped watching wrestling. I was a UFC fan. And how I found out about it was my brother, Johnny Boots, told me about what happened. I don't think the wrestling world will ever forget that, ever be able to move on from that. It's probably the most horrific incident in all of wrestling. It's along the lines of the Owen Hart incident, where Owen Hart fell to his ultimate demise. And we watched it live on pay-per-view. And they cut away from it. And I couldn't sleep the whole night. Chris Benoit, you could see a change in his behavior, especially after Eddie Guerrero was found deceased in his hotel room. As far as David Benoit, let's be honest, guys. If David Benoit was inside that house where Benoit did what he did, he wouldn't be alive today. And he talks about Benoit being his hero, saying that it wasn't him. Well, guess what, David? It was him who did that. And if you were in that house visiting, in that same house, David Benoit wouldn't be here to tell us his side of the story. I don't think so. And you know what would have happened. Let's also bring this into effect. He wasn't on the top when he was on his way down. It looked like he was demoted to ECW, but not this ECW, the ECW that WWE reformulated, which was a watered down version of ECW, which wasn't that great. And he was slotted to be their champion, I believe, but be it as it may, it didn't happen. It went on for a whole day where he was deciding what he was going to do after he already did what he did with his wife and his son. At the end of the day, we're looking at somebody who did something that could never be forgiven. I don't know if anyone could forgive or forget what happened. But at the end of the day, I just remember watching Chris Benoit matches that were awesome, and he put on some of the best matches with his intensity, and he was an incredible performer. And I'll just leave it at that. Doesn't matter how good you are, if you do 100,000 things correct. That one thing that you do wrong, people will remember that one bad thing. Remember that, guys. Comes down to that saying, you're only as good as your last day. Remember that. You know what? As far as Hall of Fame goes, I would love to see a woman in the WWE Hall of Fame. So would Johnny Boots. Because that would solidify her legacy was not ended because of the negligence of Benoit, of Chris Benoit doing what he did. Then we could possibly move on a little bit. We could possibly move on, shed some light on the beautiful career of woman